Hey guys, what's going on? So to have an album review for Viral Load's third album, Backwoods Bludgeoning, Sick Hicks from the Sticks. So if you're not familiar with Viral Load, brutal death metal from Texas, started in the mid to late 90s. The first two albums, which I've already reviewed, I previously reviewed. The second album, Practitioners of Perversion, were done as a full band with programmed drums. Now, by the time this album came around, it was just a one-man project of Sean Whitaker, still with programmed drums. And this album came out a lot later. I know that there was a hiatus after Practitioners of Perversion. This one came out a lot later. Practitioners was in 2000, this one in 2006. Sean Whitaker did some in-stage discrepancy stuff in between, which, if you don't know, is his other one-man brutal death metal project. Amazing stuff as well. And this album doesn't feel very heavily connected stylistically to the first two albums. It's kind of more of its own thing. That's not to say it's a bad album. This is still a very good album. But if you really like the first two, this one, it's still groovy, brutal death metal with some technical flares here and there, but it has a different feel to it. It's a lot less spazzy and it's a little less energetic than the first two. It's a little bit more technical, but it's just not as flashy overall. It's a lot more stripped down stylistically as well. There's not quite as much melody. There's still no like black metal-y stuff like the first album had. It's just a lot more of a stripped down brutal death metal album, but it's still done very well, and there's some great songs on here. So anyways, this is a cassette reissue put out through Dissonant Tapes. Great quality tape. If you like brutal death metal and you like cassettes, go check out Dissonant Tapes. Really cool label. Putting out good, high quality tapes right now. So anyways, here's the album cover done by John Zig. This has never really been one of my favorite album covers, honestly. I just think the colors are not that pleasant to the eye, but it's still it's still a good cover. I just don't love it. I do have a little mini poster of this that came with the tape, so it looks cool enough, but it's not my favorite album cover ever. I don't know, but yeah. There's the back track listing. Like lyrically, it's still pretty similar to the early Viral Load stuff. It's still got that really weird, quirky, but still like juvenile and offensive type of shit. But you've got Backwoods Brutality, Beetlejuice Bukake, Cum Stained Murder Weapon, Ice Pick Vasectomy, what does it say? Skill Sodomy. But like the word sodomy is like saw, like SAW. Lawnmower Lobotomy, and then of course the classic U-Haul full of dead bodies. And there's a cover of Gorguts, Inoculated Life. And it's not written on the track listing, but there's also an outro track that's like a clean guitar thing. So yeah, here's what the tape looks like. Pretty nice. Right when you open it up, you see the man himself right there, Sean Whitaker. In my opinion, one of the best brutal death metal guitarists and musicians in general, really. Everything. He's never put out anything bad, and this is no exception, of course. So, I think the only real flaw that this album has, and what sets me back from liking this one quite as much as the first two, is the production. The first two Viral Load albums are a lot juicier production-wise. They have a lot more, they have this more in-your-face sort of quality, whereas this one, a big part of that is the vocals, but also the drum machine. And there's a lack of bass on here. I don't know if Sean Whitaker actually even recorded bass for this album, or if it's just super buried in the mix, but this album is a lot thinner sounding. Now, the guitar tone is a lot warmer, so it packs a little more low end. But the drum machine is a lot, I don't know, the drum machine has a lot less of a sharp sound to it. It has less clarity, and it feels a little more fake. I mean, the original drums were still very, the program drums on the first two albums were still very fake, but on here, it feels even more clicky, and I don't know. I don't mind that normally, but on this album in particular, I don't know what it is, but the programmed drums I don't love the sound of. They do their job. I don't dislike the way they sound. They're just kind of there, you know. The guitar tone I'm also not that huge on. It has a little bit of a muffled, warm kind of sound to it, but in no way does it do any detriment to any of the songs, because the songwriting is really where this album shines, not the production, in my opinion. And some of the songs on here are a lot more technical and feel more like a less dissonant version of Insidious Discrepancy. Whereas there's songs that feel more like straight up Viral Load songs, like Backwoods Brutality and U-Haul Full of Dead Bodies, or like Cum Stained Murder Weapon. Those are the more groove-laden tracks. I think a lot of people just hear U-Haul Dead Bodies and they assume that this whole album is like ultra groovy, stuff like that, but it's really not. There's a lot of technical stuff on here. like Beetlejuice Bukkake and Ice Pick Vasectomy. Those are still very like technical, fast sort of songs that you would hear more on in State Discrepancy, but they're not quite as like evil sounding. They're more tonally, they fit more with Viral Load. They have that southerny kind of just kind of western sort of feel that Viral Load is kind of known for. But anyways, Backwoods Brutality is a great intro track though. Sean Whitaker's vocals aren't that different from Insidious Discrepancy on here. Obviously this is the first thing he did vocals for Viral Load. And his vocals work for this. I like Donnie, can't remember his fucking last name, but Donnie, the vocalist on the first 2 Viral Load albums, I like his vocals more than Sean Whitaker's, and I think his fit the band more. Especially those really crazy, like snarly highs he has, and those really pissed off lows. Sean Whitaker's vocals are still awesome, but they're different stylistically. They're not quite as out of the pocket sounding. They're a little more straightforward. But I still really like Sean Whitaker as a vocalist. He does a lot more of those like kind of guttural sounding grunts on here than he does in Insidious Discrepancy, which I really appreciate. He does those a lot for like the groovy parts, which works very well. And the technical parts are done very well too. They're very well crafted. They're still memorable. The songs are still crafted very well. To where the song structure is somewhat maze-like, but it'll still like stick with you every time you listen to it. Honestly, I'd say the best song on here is probably the most popular one, U-Haul Full of Dead Bodies. That's just a masterpiece of a song, and it's arguably Viral Load's most popular song, which I think that there's better songs on the first 2 albums, but that is easily the best song on here. It's one of his best songs in his entire discography nonetheless, both Viral Load and Insidious Discrepancy. I mean, it's an amazing song. It's just super catchy, and it's groovy, but in a unique sort of way. It doesn't sound like a generic, like, groovy kind of slam-ridden sort of song. It's got some, like, kind of slidey guitarists that are just really catchy. There's also a really melodic sort of guitar solo at the end. It's also really pretty, which Sean Whitaker is a really underrated lead player. I talked about this in my review for practitioners of Perversion. But when he does like kind of melodic guitar solos, it's really fucking good, and it's always really memorable. Inoculated Life is a Gore Guts cover, and it's done very well, honestly. Something that Sean Whitaker is really good at doing with his covers, which he also did this with a cover of Immolation. I think he covered Dawn of Possession, or I forget if it was Dawn of Possession or Into. I have the fucking CD right here. I think it was. No, yeah, it was Dawn of Possession. He did on a Decadent Orgy of Atrocious Suffering from Insidious Discrepancy. He kind of, whenever he does a cover, he doesn't like change anything about the song, but he makes it sound like his own stylistically with the programmed drums and everything, and just the way he plays the riffs. He makes it sound like it would fit well on this album with the Gore Guts cover. And I mean, it's a great original song to begin with, so hearing Sean Whitaker's rendition of it is really interesting. And there's like a clean guitar kind of outro. And I don't know, tonally it doesn't fit super well with the rest of the album, honestly. But it is a nice little break at the end after all the technical, groovy, brutal death metal sort of stuff. And it's still a pretty piece, but it's not tonally, it doesn't sound as like Western and like, I don't know, it doesn't have that same sort of sound that this album, the rest of the album has. But it's still nice though. My only gripe with the sound, like I said, is always the production is a lot weaker, more muffled sounding than the first 2. It's a lot more of a stripped down album production-wise and stylistically. There's not quite as much of a diverse set of influences going on within the songs as there are on the first 2 Viral Load albums. So this one is kind of its own thing compared to the first 2, but it's still a very solid album. You shouldn't skip over it just because the rest of the band wasn't on this album and it was just a one-man album. It's still a completely competent album, and I think it's a very enjoyable release. It's not my favorite thing ever that Sean Whitaker has done, but it is still very good. I think I'd give this one about an 8.5 out of 10. It's not perfect, because again, the production kind of holds it back from really being a perfect album, but there's not really any bad songs on here. Overall, pretty solid release. So yeah, Viral Load with Backwoods Bludgeoning, Sick Hicks from the Sticks. Listen to it if you haven't. If you're new to Viral Load, maybe start with the first album, Brutalized Beyond Belief, but this one is definitely still worth listening to. So yeah, that's it for this review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.